Hi, I'm Laura Mize, pediatric speech language pathologist, and welcome to Teach Me to Talk's Therapy Tip of the Week. As a pediatric speech pathologist, or as the parent of a toddler who is not yet talking, do you ever think, boy, I wish I had a crystal ball so that I could predict when this child is ever going to be able to start to use words? Well, guys, I don't have a magic speech therapy wand or a crystal ball, but I do have something even better, and it's my chart of 11 skills toddlers master before words emerge. And what it does is it takes the 11 prerequisite, pre-linguistic, foundational skills that all toddlers master before they start to use words. And by looking at these 11 skills, we really know how far away words are. When a child is missing, or when one of these skills, or when one of these skills is weak, we know that a language delay is a possibility. When several of these areas are missing, or when they are weaker, like we've only seen a couple of evidences that a child uses these skills, we know that a language delay is really, really likely. And honestly, guys, with these 11 skills, when a toddler is 1 or 2 and is missing lots of these skills, we may be looking at a lifelong communication problem or struggle. I don't want to make you depressed or upset when I'm saying that, but I'm telling you that these 11 skills will give you so much information about when a child really is realistically developmentally ready to talk. So let's just run through these, and let me just say that this is all information from my therapy manual, Let's Talk About Talking, that you can find at teachmetotalk.com, but I want to just give you a preview of these 11 skills. Skill number 1, a child reacts to events in his environment. What does that mean? It means that he notices things that he can see and hear and feel and taste and experience as he explores his or her little environment. Environmental exploration should be the number one driving force in a toddler's life. And as a parent, if you are parenting a busy toddler right now, you may just be beside yourself, but just know that that's important for language development. That's an important way that your child is learning about the world. So that is skill number 1. Skill number 2 is that a child responds to people when they try to talk to or play with him. Why is this important? Because communicating always involves at least 2 people. So when we have a child who isn't consistently responding, doesn't respond to his or her name all the time, by the time that they are 12 months old, a child who seems to tune out language, who avoids interaction with other people, that's a big red flag for communication development, because he has to be able to respond. He has to be able to react when he hears you talking to him. We want to see that he enjoys being around other people, and it's a big red flag when kids do tend to self-isolate. So that was skill number 2. Skill number 3 in this list of 11 pre-linguistic skills is that a child takes turns with you. He gets that conversation and the interaction is a two-way street. He gets that he has to do his part too. And so he starts again with responding to you when you were talking to him, and then he knows that he's got to repeat that interaction, or that he has to begin that interaction. So again, we get that back and forth reciprocity going. So that's skill number 3, that a child takes turns with you. Skill number 4 is that a child develops a longer attention span. Now you may be wondering, what in the world is a longer attention span? Give me a time limit here. Research tells us that toddlers should be able to spend 3 to 6 minutes uninterrupted in an activity, meaning that he's playing with one toy or one little set of toys for about 5 minutes on his own without needing any help from you with staying on task. And so when we have a little one who is all over the place, who is just busy, and not staying and focusing there, and not really learning to stay with an activity, we know that there's a red flag for learning language. Attention is the gatekeeper for learning everything that we want a toddler to learn in that earliest developmental period. And so when we have a little guy or a little girl who's not very focused and who again is all over the place, pretty scattered, we worry about their language development because they are not focused enough and intentional enough about being in one place long enough to hear that incoming information. So that's a big, big red flag for language development as well. Skill number 5 is shifts and shares joint attention with others. So what does that mean? That means that you and the child can look at the same object or participate in the same event, and he or she is checking on you and checking with you and looking at you to make sure that you too are attending to the same experience. And so when we have a child who, when we introduce a toy, and they are just laser focused on the toy, or when we're saying to a child, look, and they are not following our point, they are demonstrating weaknesses in this area. They're not able to sustain attention to what you want them to pay attention to, or they get so focused on the object that they leave you out of it too. So we need all 3 participants there, all that whole triad of attention. We need children to be able to do that. So that was skill number 5. And again, why is this important for language development? Because if a child isn't able to focus and watch and see and attend to what you are talking about, he's not going to hear your words, and then he's not going to be able to link meaning with those words later. And so we'll talk about that receptive language piece in a minute, or the comprehension piece, but that attention piece has to be there first, and then it has to get a little better with skill number 5 with the joint attention piece, where children are again sharing that experience with you, and that you're both paying attention to the same thing, and that you care that the other person is with you, and that the other person just doesn't disappear when the cool toy comes out. So that is skill number 5 with joint attention. Skill number 6 is so important. It's plays with a variety of toys appropriately. So how is this related to language development? Play is how toddlers learn just about everything. And so when a kid is not playing with lots of different toys, he is really missing out on opportunities to learn. So sometimes parents will say things like, well, my child just doesn't like toys. I can't find anything that will hold his attention for more than a minute or two. That's a red flag. And play is also how we learn most about how a child's cognitive skills are developing. So how does a child remember? How does he learn? How does he pay attention? How does he think? We know that by watching him play. So play development is a really, really important part, or a predictor of language development. So that was skill number 6. Skill number 7 is the receptive language piece that I already alluded to. And this is where a child understands and follows simple directions. And so he understands early words. And why is this important? Because the child has to understand words before he can use those words to begin to communicate. And this is an area where parents, we miss it. We miss it in our own babies. Sometimes we are blinded to what they can and cannot do. And so we will think he understands everything, but then we don't really, or we chalk up when he doesn't follow a direction to he's stubborn, or he's lazy, or he's busy, or he's just a little stinker. He never listens, rather than he's got a bona fide language problem here. He does not understand what words mean. And so when a kid's not showing you body parts, when you say something like, where's your hair? Or they're not, when you say, go get your cup. You left your sippy cup on the couch. Go get your cup. When they are not following those kinds of directions, it's usually not that they are choosing to do their own thing. Lots of times when they're also not using words yet, it means that they're not understanding words. And so we have to really, really address that with just as much intentionality and purposefulness as we do with getting them to talk. And so understanding words, super, super, super important part of learning how to talk. So that's skill number 7. Skill number 8 is that a child vocalizes or makes noise purposefully. And sometimes, this is kind of like one of those duh statements with, a kid has to vocalize before he can talk. But sometimes parents kind of miss this because they don't realize how quiet their own children are. So maybe he's the first child in a family and a parent doesn't have a lot of experience with how typically developing babies, how noisy they are. And so, or sometimes it could be that a child is in a large family and nobody gets heard because there's just constant noise. And so we need to be sure that we are really making sure that a child learns, even before he begins to use a lot of words, even before he's saying mama, that he's whining for her, that he's calling that he's calling out for her, that he has ways that he can very deliberately make his needs and wishes known. Even without words. All right, so that's skill number 8. Skill number 9 is so important. It's imitating. And it's not just that a child can imitate words. And let me just say, if you are the parent of a late talker right now, or a kid who's not talking yet, and he or she is not imitating words, and you have tried your best, you get in front of him all the time saying, say mama, or tell me dada, and you practice and you practice and you practice, and he's not imitating the word, you've got to back it up. Imitation actually develops as a motor skill first, meaning that a child imitates actions with objects. So he can copy what you do with a toy or with some other object that you use in daily routines. He can copy you. If you brush your hair with a hairbrush and you give him the brush, he doesn't try to spin it, he doesn't try to lick it, he doesn't try to throw it, he brushes his hair with it. And so imitation is so important. And then it moves along from actions with objects, and a child starts to imitate body movements that you do. So you clap and he claps, or you give a high five and he gives a high five. And those kinds of things, imitating those body actions, turn into gestures like pointing and like waving and like shaking your head for yes and no. All of those really important nonverbal ways that all of us communicate throughout our lifetimes, we really learn as toddlers. And we first learn that as imitation. So can a child imitate your actions, your gestures? And then we bump up and make it a little harder. Can he imitate your sounds? And so before a kid gets to the point that he can really imitate real words, he's imitating a lot of vocal play sounds, like a fake cough or like a raspberry. And so we want to see that skill level with imitation develop along a continuum, in that he starts non-verbally and then he starts to do some things verbally. And so then, and only then, will we start to hear some real words in there. And so you've got to really think about imitation and how critical of a pre-linguistic skill that is for late talkers, and how important it is to think about it and then work on that, again, at a level where a child can be successful. All right, skill number 10 in our list of 11 skills that toddlers master before words emerge. I just talked about it. It's the extension of skill number 9, where children learn how to imitate actions and gesture that evolve into gestures. This is that children use gestures on their own to communicate. Now, why is this important? Research tells us that gestures emerge just before words emerge in language development. And again, this is true of typical language development and true of later language development. So kids aren't really going to talk until they are using a wide variety of gestures to let you know what they mean. So they are pointing, they are reaching, they are leading you. And those are, again, other things like waving bye-bye and pointing, or even higher level gestures. So we want to be sure that they are using those on their own, because nonverbal communication is really important, and it's a great compensation and a great supplement to the words that you'll hear children say. All right, last skill. Skill number 11 is that a child initiates interactions with others to get his needs met, or just to play, or just to hang out. And this means that a child takes the lead. He understands that he has something to show you or give you or talk about. And again, even before he's using a lot of real words, he's trying to get your attention. So his communicative intent is developing, and he knows that he can take the lead in conversation, again, even without words. And why is that important? Because none of us can depend on other people reading our minds to know what we want. We have to learn how to communicate with intent on our own. Now, we have walked through this 11 skill list pretty quickly. If you want a longer explanation of that, have I got a resource for you. Listen to show number 385, or watch it there on YouTube. It's my podcast, and I just did this entire show where we took an hour and walked through this list of 11 skills. And we are about to do something really exciting on the podcast and go through these skills week to week over the next several weeks so that I can not only talk to you about the skill and why it's important for language development, but more importantly, teach you how to work on it if it's something that you need to do with your own late talking toddler. And if you want more information than that, this is the written version. It's my therapy manual, Let's Talk About Talking, and you can get that exclusively at my website at teachmetotalk.com. All right, that's it for today. I'm Laura Mize, pediatric speech language pathologist, and thank you so much for joining me for teachmetotalk.com's Therapy Tip of the Week.